Welcome to Camera Tech Podcast, episode 80. That's right, it's the big 80. But before we get straight into it, just be reminded that if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, you might as well head over to YouTube, where you can not only hear our sultry voices, but see our lovely faces in full Technicolor. That's except, of course, unless you're listening to this in the car, Tommy, in which case, make sure you listen to the audio version. Of course. So, yeah. So, episode 80, and like
almost your age, Kay.
Almost my age. Well, that's how old I feel. That's that's for sure. But
Okay.
I mean, it hasn't gone amiss that that we're in separate locations again, just like we were in episode 1.
Yeah, that's right. And last week when we spoke with Joe McNally,
Absolutely.
because you went and did a silly thing, didn't you?
Yeah, I have to self-isolate. Well, funny enough, by the time you see this this video or listen to this podcast, I'm actually enjoying the trepidations of freedom once more. But as we're recording this, I am fully self-isolating because, unfortunately, this time around, I haven't been able to escape the COVID. So
Escape.
there you go.
I've warned you before. You shouldn't have 5G on your phone. That's what's happened here, mate.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it's interesting to think, really, that despite all the measures that we've put in place and whatever, it's only taken 18 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's unreal.
So, yeah.
I was just saying to some friends the other day that it's simply a matter of time before one of us gets it, and
it is a matter of time.
And either it'll affect us badly or it won't, and we'll see. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
We've done everything we can. We still do everything we can, and that's it. We just have to move forward.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm actually feeling fine. Thank you for asking.
Oh, sorry. Was it not obvious I didn't care?
Oh, well, that was obvious to me, but, I just wanted to make sure it's obvious to the listeners as well. But what's really interesting is how differently it affects, different people. Like, my wife, is self-isolating as well at the moment. And, maybe there were about 2 days at the beginning where she was really feeling very unwell. And then, since then it's, it's almost normalized by now. But, it's, to me, it really just feels, luckily, it feels just like a really annoying cold.
Yeah.
As you can probably hear by the, sexy sound of my voice. So
I knew there was something different about you.
I know. And it's not only the denim shirt, of course.
Not double denim. Are you triple denim? Is there denim underneath that denim? Or is that
No, I
t-shirt?
wish it was. I'll go full triple for sure. But,
It's I'm going to get you a denim jacket, definitely. Maybe a denim hat.
Already got one.
Of course you have.
Hey, it's in the DNA. What can I say?
Trip denim. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I was going to go for like some denim Sherpa jacket for this winter, of course.
Nice. See, I would have done all the shopping if I was laid up indoors for the last week or so. What have you been doing?
Not much. I mean, I didn't really feel. I really felt wiped out, actually. So I haven't really been doing very much at all. I've been doing. There were a couple of things that I wanted to do, but I really haven't had the energy to do it. So I think, we got involved in several Netflix series, and that's about it.
You completed Netflix then?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels strangely like the original lockdown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is, I mean, it does feel like a cold, but with the additional annoyance that you literally do something for 10 minutes and you feel like, it feels like you've done like a 5-hour hardcore editing stint or something. So that's the only thing. It's slightly everything's slightly exhausting, but other than that, it's not too bad.
Well, a few more days and you'll be out, and hopefully back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait actually, because I had to totally clear about 2 weeks in my diary. Not only because of COVID, but originally because my son ended up in hospital, so I had to clear, some time there, and then that's where the whole thing actually originates from.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the only thing I would say is, my experience was really that is rampant in hospitals at this point, and there's really no way that you cannot get infected if you're in or around a hospital these days. That's the impression I got. We were wearing like full PPE basically,
and still,
visors and everything, and still, yeah. So, it's a mystery. It's a mystery to me as to how somebody who works in that situation, does not sooner or later, contract it. But
just makes you think how much use any of that PPE style stuff actually is.
I think it just delays the inevitable.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
if you're in permanent, a bit like being double vaccinated, seems to basically just delay it. If you're around it and you're around it constantly for whatever reason, you may not get it straight away, but you will. You're going to get it at some point still.
Yeah, I think the advantage there, though, is with as far as vaccinations are concerned, is that when you do contract it, the consequences are not quite as severe as they might have been otherwise. Like, I think had it not been for the fact that both my wife and I had both vaccinations, we probably would have suffered a lot more. And luckily, we don't have any underlying health issues or something, but there's a huge difference between the sniffles and like a full on flu type of a thing, So
yeah,
but yeah.
Well,
there we are.
Touch
anyway,
wood.
We can still, touch wood, and as you can tell, nothing's going to stop us from creating another podcast episode.
Absolutely,
or 2 episodes actually.
20 weeks away from episode 100. That's how I'm viewing it now.
I know.
Get that? Not bad, eh? Not bad. Let's see if we're doing it from different locations in 20 weeks' time.
Yeah. I mean,
let's see what Boris does over Christmas.
Exactly. When we started this, there was no chance we would have thought that 80 weeks in we would still be in the same kind of predicament. Right,
mad, right?
I mean, that's it's nuts.
But horrible.
On the flip side, of course, it's given us all the tools to create these sort of shows. Even when we're not in the same room. So
yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Keep moving forwards, regardless. Always.
Exactly. And the only difference, really, realistically, for me, is that there's most likely not going to be any pizza after we finish this episode.
Not after the amount of pizza I ate last night, I can assure you. It was
really.
I'm not even going to say how much it was, but all I say is that it was Domino's. It was 2 for Tuesday. We'll just leave it there. We'll leave it there. No more needs to be said.
That sounds like a great pre-party.
It was great. It was great. I feel very disappointed in myself, though.
I'd be happy if I could go out and get some food. At the moment, it's extremely boring. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. Cool. So, but that's the COVID part done with. Let's talk about stuff that's been happening over the last few weeks. How's the I mean, from my side, I haven't really been able to get involved in too many photographic projects. We've got stuff lined up, over the next few months, which is great. But how's it been for you? Have you worked on any projects over the last couple of weeks?
Well, actually, what I was just thinking of is, because I'm looking at it right now, and I've just remembered that I've upgraded some gear.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
But I did it for a reason. And the reason is that my Manfrotto fluid head broke.
Right.
Like 3 or 4 weeks ago now. Can't remember when it was. 4 weeks ago. And I sent it in for repair, and the cost of repair was the same as buying it new. And
wait a minute, was that broke as we were getting ready to film an episode, right?
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So my camera was then basically held up by a mic boom arm, just to keep it steady. It was like that for 2 episodes, in fact.
Well, you got to DIY that kind of stuff sometimes.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was also just. I remember it happened just at the beginning. The camera body started to dip.
Yeah, I couldn't work out why.
And it was just as our guest was coming online as well. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it. But we made it work. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So yeah, sent it in repair. They wanted the same amount as the fluid head cost to repair it, and it's not going to happen. Not going to do that. That's just crazy. So I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Bin it. I don't want that. I don't want it back. 'Cause it can't be used. It's just useless. So I started doing some research into what different fluid heads out there, which inevitably led me on to doing some research into tripod legs as well. And so I thought, well, you know what? I was never happy with that fluid head anyway. It was okay. It did a job, but was it nearly as smooth as I ever wanted it to be? Not even close. Not even close. So after a ton of research and comparing different fluid heads and reading up a load of stuff, talked to a couple of different people as well, I settled on getting a Sachtler Active 6 head, right? Which is, I haven't actually had it out on a proper job or properly used it, but just playing around with it at the moment, it's absolutely phenomenal. What a cracking piece of kit it is. And it really, really is good. Smooth as anything. The tension between sort of pan and tilt they match each other, whereas I didn't have that before either. So that's just fantastic. So you adjust you got specific settings, 1, 2, and 3 on each. Gives you more drag or less drag. They match, so you've got the same, and it's just, trust me, it makes a world of difference. It's got counterbalance on it, meaning that when your camera's loaded up on top, you set the counterbalance to match the load of the camera, so that if you tilt forward and you're at, say, a 45-degree angle, you don't have to lock it off. It will just stay at that 45 degrees.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and the reverse is true as well. So that makes it so much simpler and easier to maneuver the camera where you want it to go. It can point 90 degrees down as well, which lots of heads don't. It almost does 90 degrees up, but not quite. What else? It's got, this is a cool little feature. I haven't. I've seen a couple of other heads that have this, but it's got the usual kind of spirit level or spirit bubble in there, but it's also goes for a prism, so that you see the same top-down view, if you like, but facing outwards towards you. So if you've got your tripod up high and the head's up there, you can't see down onto the spirit bubble, but you can see it on the side instead.
Oh, great!
As well.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And what a cracking idea! They all light up. It lights up as well. It lights up the controls too. So if you're in a dark environment, again, just a nice little additional touch. Do you need this stuff? No, of course you don't. But it really does make your life a little bit simpler. It's a bowl instead, so rather than a flat plate. So which meant I needed to get some new legs for it anyway, because my tripods were all flat plate. And so I started looking around, a load of great tripods like that out there that I wanted to get. I thought, that would do the job really well as well, and so on and so on. But then I came across the Sachtler Flowtech 75s. So it took me a minute to remember what they're called. And they're, wow. I'm going to use the word nifty for these.
Right.
They're solid as anything. They're all carbon fiber. They got, I think, 2 or 3 large sections, so they go up really high as well. But the really cool part about it is that normally with a tripod, you might have to undo 1, 2, 3 different sections on each leg, whether that's with a clip or a twist, just to raise or lower the tripod, right? These, you don't do that. And they have quick release kind of latches on each of the tripod legs at the top, near where the head goes. And so you just release those 3 and just pick it up, and the legs come out the bottom. You just put them back down, and it's done. Same on the way back down as well. It's so fast. So, if you're doing work which requires you to move around and be at different heights regularly throughout the day, what a godsend that is. It really makes a difference. If you're always going to be static and you don't move it around during the day, and once you're set, it's not going to make any difference to you. It just doesn't. But again, it's just that added convenience. And I found a nice secondhand pair as well, which was significantly cheaper than buying them new, because they're not cheap. They are expensive.
Yeah, they're not.
But it's just, again, just nice little touches on all of those. Anyway, so we're waffling on about gear for a few minutes there. I can't wait to get them out and properly try them out in actually on a job. But let's see. Let's see. I think they're going to work out crackingly good.
The other really amazing aspect of that, especially of these satchel tripod legs, is just the weight of it. Because I remember the last time I was at your place and I had to go at the thing, it was really astonishingly light.
Yeah, because they're quite they're chunkier tripods legs than you would typically find, but they add no weight at all. Absolutely no weight, to the point where actually carrying it on your shoulder with the head on, with your camera on, no problem. It's really no problem.
You can definitely see how on location is so much more practical.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you can move change the length of the legs really quite easily. Literally, you can do it with one hand.
Yes, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. Oh, there's a couple other little features actually it's worth mentioning. On the fluid head itself, once it's set, you've kind of done it the one time. You then just have a release. So even if you don't get your tripod legs 100% level, it doesn't matter, because this fluid head you release, and it's got you've got the bubble on there, and it literally just moves around. Just move it a little bit down, and it's in, and it's locked into place. It takes a second to level that head. Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. It's cracking way it works. And the other thing to mention is, because of the way they've designed this, it has no pole coming out of the bottom of the head, which most fluid heads do if they're in a bowl like that. Yeah. Which means that these legs can go pretty much completely flat to the ground. Well, they do. Yeah. They go completely flat to the ground rather than being a bit of an angle. They're actually completely flat, which is just, again, a nice little touch. It's got rubber feet and spikes on the bottom as well. Really cool.
Yeah, getting low to the ground. I mean, it's, for instance, on my Manfrotto allows you to do that too, but it does have a center pole, which means you have to bring the center pole out and then you know, put it in horizontally and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of kerfuffle with that. Of course, I mean, all of that is still a lot more kerfuffle than, let's say, a platypus. Where just
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is all video. This is video related head and legs here. This wouldn't be really appropriate for photography, really. Yeah. You could do it on there, obviously, if it's what you've got and you do both video and photo work. Then actually, it could be a good answer. You might want a different head for photo. But yeah, you can convert that to a flat plate with a quick adapter, and so you can use any other heads that you've got already, which are flat plate, which is nice little touch. Yeah. Nice little touch. So I can't wait to get them out and try them. This is such a silly little feature that shouldn't be relevant, but it's cool and it's nice. Is that when you put the legs together, they're magnetized at the bottom, so they won't come apart unless you pull them apart. Yeah. It's the little things.
So, I mean, this is the thing. On my Manfrotto, the legs also won't come apart. In fact, they won't come apart unless you use superhuman strength to actually pry them apart. That's that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, as much as I love that thing, that it served me very well. I've probably had it. I don't know. I've had it for.
Sorry, we've got a visitor here. Say hello, Indy. Yeah, you've got to be involved, haven't you? Down you get. So for those on audio, my cat just jumped up on the table here.
That regularly happens pretty much every episode. It's just if you are listening to audio, you never see it.
Yeah, that's head over to YouTube and go check it out.
Exactly. And if you're not, then at least do us a favor and write a little review at the bottom of the podcast of the show. Then that would help us a lot. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, Manfrotto. I love that tripod. It's served me really well. It's like a little bit of a, it's a super solid thing. I've used this in pretty much all environments. And it's still working. That really, that speaks for itself. But I think particularly for video, there's a need to look for something a little bit more substantial, especially as far as the head's concerned.
Absolutely. Yeah, there really, really is. Would I've gotten fine with the heads and legs I was using before? Yeah, no question. But it just felt like a good opportunity while I had to upgrade, and then I kind of got, my thought process was, well, if I'm going to upgrade to whatever's kind of in between, I know I'm going to have to do it again in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Well, I don't know, whatever that might be. But this stuff's now just going to see me through for I don't know how long, forever.
Well, I mean, one of the main differences also, from if you think about it, is that whenever we do an on-location video shoot, we tend to change the angle loads of times, which basically means picking up the tripod, resetting it, and all that on all sorts of different surfaces and blah blah blah. That doesn't really, that doesn't really happen when I do a photo shoot.
Right.
When I do an on-location photo shoot, usually what happens is there's either a set, or some kind of setup, and once the camera is locked down, it's pretty much locked down. So when I do shoot with a tripod, which I do often, then that tripod is pretty much more or less going to stay in the same position. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. Especially when, particularly when we're shooting for composites, for example, then everything has to be totally locked down. So really, you set it up once, and you set it and forget it, and then and that's about it. But with video, of course, it's completely different. So the practicality issue of being able to, extend or contract the legs more easily, changing angles, all that kind of stuff, moving it around, carrying it over certain distances with the camera still attached to it, all of that becomes much more important. So the minute, there's some kind of time saving there, or, some just a saving of effort, that's a welcome change for sure.
Absolutely. And as you know, I get a bad back, and one thing carrying around stuff like that is taxing for me. So the lighter it can be, the better. But you've seen me, you've watched me there, and you always have to help me keep that tripod and the camera steady while I'm adjusting those legs, just to bring it down just a fraction, or to raise it a fraction and to level it up. And you're bending down to do that at the different sections that you're doing it on. But that's hopefully going to be a thing of the past for me now. Yeah. That will make quite a difference to me.
This podcast is in no way sponsored by Satchler, but if you are interested and want to have a look, there'll be a link in the description, of course. We don't get any kickback. Again, it's just for purely informative purposes.
Exactly. But yeah, cool. I'll update you more on those as I've used them a bit more, got them out there and really see what they can do, and where they really kind of make a big difference for me, and also where they don't, where they perhaps even hinder progress from where I was before. Who knows? Yeah, I'm looking
forward to actually seeing it in the field. I mean, there's a number of projects coming up. In November, I think, where we'll be able to make use of that. So that should be cool. There's a couple of things I'm looking forward to. We're doing a couple of shoots that we've got planned in a few weeks' time, when hopefully, I'll be able to be in the vicinity of other human beings again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got a couple of shoots lined up. We're shooting a jazz trio. That should be very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day.
On location, so that should be an interesting thing, and a variety of other things. So, but we'll talk about that when they happen. We're thinking of creating some behind the scenes content for that as well. If that is something you're interested in, give us a comment or hit us up on social media. That'd be great as well. But so that's all to come for next month. Now, I tell you what, though, here's a story I came across that I found as outrageous as I found it shocking, yet not very surprising.
Okay.
And that's the fact, it's the fact that DJI could be banned from the United States. The
biggest drone manufacturer and gimbal manufacturer?
I know. But I think, yes. But so they are planning on, or that this, things are on the move to basically throw DJI in with the likes of Huawei. Huawei.
Imagine Cool Whip, and
Cool Whip.
Then you get there with Huawei.
Huawei. So I'll give you a bit of background to this. So the FCC Commissioner Brandon Carr says that DJI drones pose a risk to national security. So the FCC is the Federal Communications Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so he wants it to be moved on the covered list. Again, to join, Huawei, and there's a company called ZTE Corporations or something, and a variety of other companies. And all of these companies are deemed to pose an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States. So with Huawei, if you remember, there was this whole thing about data and 5G networks and all that. I think the fear is how much information gets passed on to the Chinese government. That's really where all of this kind of originates.
Well, we had that here with Huawei, didn't we, for a while, because they were installing our 5G networks, weren't they? Their equipment was being used within our 5G networks, if I remember correctly. And I don't know whether they could continue or whether they got stopped. I don't remember now.
See, if they were really clever, they would make COVID vaccinations, of course, because we all know that there's a positive impact on your 5G.
Absolutely. I now know why you've had an issue the last couple of weeks. I got the new iPhone a little while ago, and now I have 5G.
But there you go.
There you go. I've passed it. There we go. That's it. It's then gone through my phone, through the network, straight to you, mate, as I've been sending you text messages. That's how it's happened.
Exactly. So, yeah. See, that's an explanation for everything. So, I mean, it's, basically, DJI stands accused of collecting lots of vast amounts of data. Okay, such as, high-res images of sensitive installations and infrastructure, for example. It's accused of, using its technology for facial recognition and remote sensors to measure, get this, body temperature and the heart rate of individual human beings.
Right.
And so the FCC is concerned that DJI collects this data and then passes it on to the Chinese government.
I have nothing to say to that. That's just, I mean, come on. I might be being naive, but come on.
I mean, it seems extremely far-fetched. But there's a really funny angle to this as well. Because of this, so there are lots of US government agencies that actually use whole fleets of DJI drones, and they all had to ground them. So just to give you an example, so in January 2020, right, this is part of this report, the Department of Interiors had to ground their entire fleet of DJI drones.
Wow.
But here's the funniest thing about this. because it's not only the Department of Interior, it's also the two other agencies that use DJI drones extensively. It's the FBI and the Secret Service.
Of course they do.
Of course it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, I don't know who they'd use otherwise. They have to start making their own. If they have such an issue.
Or maybe that's the whole idea. Because the thing, again, there are a number of different angles to this. So a while ago, I think it's in the summer, DJI was already placed onto the economy blacklist, which basically means that these are companies that US manufacturers are not allowed or prohibited from exporting parts to. And that obviously hasn't harmed DJI in the slightest because they've been mega successful this year, in terms of sales of drones. And of course, they've brought out a number of different new models and all the rest of it. But there's obviously a major difference between not being able to export to that company and that company actually not being allowed to sell any product on the US market at all.
Wow.
That's a huge difference. So
let me try and wrap my head around this. So do the US government believe that someone's drone, let's say you were in the US and you had your drone out there, right? Are they suggesting that images that drone takes, your personal drone, that drone takes, or video footage that takes, that DJI are able to access that information? Is that what they're suggesting? How would they be doing that?
I'm not saying that that's not. I'm not saying that that's impossible because I don't know. Generally speaking, I mean, if you think about what happens, when you fly a drone, you have a video feed directly to your controller. That may be your phone or the controller itself. Of course, there's a broadcast connection between the drone and the actual controller. So that signal could, in theory, be interfered with and whatever. Of course. And I guess, you could fly your drone. If you were a spy,
you'd need to be local to be able to grab that signal.
I don't know, maybe
it's such a weak signal.
Yeah, maybe you can access it. Well, if you're a spy, you probably have like James Bond style technology where you can do that from a satellite or something. I don't know. But, however they do it, I mean, there's a whole lot of, if I think about the kind of information that my drone sends out, it is quite mind-boggling. Just take the positioning information itself. It's not only the GPS, but everything from altitude to flight speeds to angles to whatever. All of that information gets logged. And that in itself is worthwhile information. I'm not quite sure where the measuring body temperature and heart rate of human beings comes from, because
I'm guessing that drones that have been are being used by the likes of the FBI and the Secret Service. I'm guessing they've been retrofitted or they're special. I'm sure of it.
I mean, so the thing is, of course, again, if I were a spy, which I'm not. But of course, if I actually were a spy, then I would say I'm a spy or not. Anyway, if I were an actual spy, and I knew that, let's say, the CIA or the FBI or the Secret Service were using DJI drones, then of course, I could come up with some kind of technology to hijack that kind of data flow.
Yeah, but
should it be?
But then you could do that with anything, right? I don't see why DJI would be special in that respect. I don't know.
I mean, it seems blatantly obvious that what's actually going on here is that, it's another Chinese company that's mega successful globally, in particular in the US market, and, that's a thorn in the eye of some.
Absolutely. And this is where the US government need to be less transparent with how obvious they are with stuff like this. It's becoming embarrassing how they're reacting to stuff like that. It's just, I'm slightly surprised that this all really kicked off under Trump, right? They'll go, you know what? Let's not get political. Can't be bothered. But that's when it started, right? I'm surprised it's carried on to this extent. and it hasn't had a little bit of a stop put to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all got to do with the people still in certain positions, and the allegiances that certain agencies have and which way they lean. That's all. That's, who can say? But it's just interesting. I mean, I'd like to have a little bit more detail as to like how, what they think in terms of data, what they actually think DJI is actually collecting. I mean, it's just be
I'm sure, quite frankly, I'm sure it's done in a different way, and the type of information would obviously be different. But I don't see how this is any worse than what the likes of Facebook or Google or Amazon are doing, right?
Yeah. Well,
do you know what I mean?
That's a whole different discussion, because Facebook are in the
Apple as well. You can put in there. I don't care what anybody says.
No.
I don't care what anyone says. And I include you in this because we've had this conversation long ago in the past. But that is always listening. And if I see another sponsored ad a few seconds after I've discussed it in a room and never searched for it before, pops up in my Facebook or Instagram feed, I will just lose my mind. It is disgraceful. And yet we're not doing anything about it.
No, that's true. And sometimes the fact that your phone's always listening, can be a benefit. I mean, when, as we had an emergency situation at home only a few weeks ago, where, the fact that my phone was on, and I could get Siri to call an ambulance, then just sped up the process.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So, so there are sort of there are positive aspects to that, I guess, in particular situations. But but then again, I always say this. Look, if you don't want your phone to listen to you, don't have a phone. Use a landline or turn it off. You could always turn it off.
I have to say, I'm starting to move towards the point that I've getting rid of smartphones and going back to something a bit more old school. Finding an old Nokia 3210. Because I've had enough of that kind of stuff. I'm getting really sick of it.
Says he who's just bought a brand new phone.
No. Part of contract.
Oh, okay.
And it only cost me an extra £15 a month to upgrade to this. So
to upgrade it. But then probably your old phone can hardly be called a smartphone by modern standards.
True. This is true. This is true. Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, while we're on tech a little bit, I've played around with obviously this is the, I don't even know what it is. What is it? 13 Pro? Is that what it is? Are we on 13 iPhone now? I can't remember. 13 Pro? Yeah, whatever. That has that cinematic video feature on it. And you can change the f-stop of that video and of the portrait mode on it after the fact, which you couldn't do previously. So I've tried out the cinematic mode video a couple of times, and in the right circumstance, it's all right. It's interesting. And that circumstance is a very specific level of lighting. If it's too dark or too bright, it doesn't look right, and you get this kind of fringing around the subject that you're focusing on, like a halo kind of look. When you're getting just the right amount of light, you don't seem to get that. Obviously, you still get the same issues where if you've got the subject that you're after and there's something else in front of it, that's also going to be in focus, whereas everything around it isn't. But that's just the nature of software-based sort of depth of field. And we'll also find that anything below about 5.6 on the video and the portrait mode doesn't look very good. It looks really unnatural, but once you hit about 5.6 on it, it's got a really nice depth of field still and looks far more natural. So everything that I pretty much do on it if I use those features, I just adjust it afterwards to 5.6 and I leave it there. That's just that might be a preference thing, but that's where it kind of sits. There's a nice little balance, balance there. Yeah, sorry, just a slight aside there, just while we're talking about iPhones and whatnot. Yeah, I don't. But the honest truth is, I don't use it much.
It's always the case, isn't it? I mean, that's always the case.
Yeah, I'd rather get my camera out if I can. If it makes sense to. If I'm just out and about, it's great, perfect. Couldn't ask for more. But otherwise, I'll always just take my camera still.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. We talked about phone photography a lot. In fact, a few weeks ago, we did the whole episode on some tips and tricks to do with the iPhone camera. So there's some really useful stuff you can use that for. It's the age-old question. Is our phones ever going to be replacing cameras? Most likely not. But then again, who would have thought that hard disk recorders would? Well,
that's true.
It would replace a DVD at one point. Who knows?
That's true.
There's probably always something new that's coming along. Who knows? I mean, ultimately, what really matters is the output. That's what I always think. It's like what are you creating with it? Ultimately, if you're creating some really beautiful photography, that works. In the medium that you present it. So, for instance, what I mean is like certain images work really well as digital images, but they really suck as prints, and vice versa. Then, but if you're creating something for a particular purpose, it really doesn't matter which tool you're using. This is again, it kind of ties in with this argument about is Nikon better than Canon or all that kind of nonsense. It really doesn't matter, because ultimately what matters is the final product, the final image. And then of course, for you as a photographer, what's important is the sort of situation that you're shooting in. If you're a concept photographer, you need completely different aspects to work well on your camera, for example, in a low light situation compared to somebody who's, maybe somebody who's a war photographer, needs solid gear that, you just need to have rugged gear that doesn't fail under the worst, in the worst conditions, And that's very different from somebody who, let's say, shoots in a studio, for example, where you're in a safe environment and all that kind of jazz. It's a completely different scenario. As a studio shooter, your gear doesn't really need to be weather sealed.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
If you're an Arctic explorer photographer or whatever, then it kind of has to be weather sealed. You know what I mean? So
it'd be nice.
And so and then if you take it from that point of view, then it really doesn't. The fact that one says Olympus and another thing says Nikon or whatever doesn't really matter anymore. Because what really matters is whether it's the right tool for the job. And that's what that is.
What I am really enjoying about the cameras on this is the wide angle on this. I really like it.
Okay.
I think it does a cracking job. I was taking some photos of a dog the other day, out and about, and I was just literally just grabbed my phone, put it on wide, and just dropped it down to the ground, and it came out absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. Would it have been better with a proper camera? Yes or no. It may have actually been harder to get the shot with a proper camera, because it's one thing having a little phone. Well, it's not little, but a small phone down in front of a dog. But it's a totally different experience for that dog putting down a camera with a 15 to 30 on 35 on it. Just it's a totally. They may not go for it. They may run away from it. Might be scared of it. So there's a little balancing act there, but it came out great. Love the wide lens on that. Really like it. Really like it.
On your old phone, you didn't have a wide lens.
No,
is that right? No. Okay.
So this is the 13, and my phone before was an 8.
Right.
So it's quite an upgrade from my perspective.
Was that from when Apple still had like the rainbow colored Apple? Is that old?
Yeah, the back of the phone was like luminous orange or blue.
Yeah. Awesome.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be good. Surprised they don't do that. Surprised they don't do that.
Well, yeah, I remember these, like the original iMacs. They were awesome.
Yeah, man. I didn't have one. They look good though.
Yeah. Now, actually, talking about war photographers, there's another funny another funny story I came across. So the Activision, the makers or creators of Call of Duty, right, have basically asked two very well-known war photographers to shoot in the game. So what they've done is they've basically asked Sebastiano Tomada and Alex Potter, which they're both two very well-known photojournalists that specialize in crisis regions or whatever, war regions. And what Activision did was they built this custom-made camera, and then they created like a custom sound stage, and they literally put these two photographers into the game. Into the World War II Call of Duty game, and so they would walk around with this camera with a screen on, and it would literally be in this like fully, interactive soundstage, and it would literally feel like they'd be in this scenario, and so they were able to create photography of the gameplay, and create images that way, and it's by their own accounts. This turned out to be an amazing experience, like an experience that really felt really real.
Are they doing it in VR?
No. It's basically the camera looks like it's essentially like a screen with two handles and then your button on top of the handle, and so they're literally walking around looking at the screen and then moving through the game, whilst they're hearing and feeling everything that's going on around them, which is, yeah. So the resulting images were actually really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and by their own those. So what they were saying was that the whole experience was so immersive that it really felt like real war. And these are people who have experienced real life war situations, in the past. So it was, it was an interesting experiment, Oh,
I'd like to see that. I guess the trouble I have with it is that my assumption is that the pictures don't look, from a quality perspective, any better than it does when you're just playing the game, which doesn't look great. It looks okay.
So the images that I've seen actually look really, really good.
Really?
But then, I think you'd have to have a close-up look, and of course they're taken from angles that you wouldn't necessarily normally see in the game, because you'd be involved in the gameplay. And they, of course, look at it from a photographer's perspective or with the photographer's eye. So, it was quite interesting.
That's cool. Oh, I'd like to see that. And they've published those photos, have they? They're readily available. Yeah. Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, so they're part of the. I'll put the link in the description.
Yeah,
so you can have a look at that. But yeah, I mean, maybe we should get either of those two on the show and talk to them about.
Absolutely, that'd be great fun.
That'd be
great fun.
Good thing to do.
Yeah, I'd like to see if they've almost recreated any shots that they've done previously in real world situations.
Yeah,
see those side by side. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Now, if any of you listening have any experience with Call of Duty, then don't hold back. Send us a message. Yeah, that's it. Get in touch. It'd be interesting to hear from you. Also, likewise, if you are situated anywhere in Central Europe or in Europe, on the European continent, then get in touch. It'd be awesome to hear from you. As always, we love to hear from our listeners all around the world. So yeah, if you find yourself somewhere in Europe, then send us a message. Look us up on Instagram, Facebook, and the rest of it. That we're also on Twitter. I don't think anybody knows that.
I didn't know that. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, we're on Twitter at Shake Camera, because apparently Camera Shake as a username was already taken.
Disgraceful.
Disgraceful, exactly. So if you want to get in touch on Twitter, it's at Shake Camera, apparently. So yeah, cool. So what else is happening? What else is new? Have you bought any more any new gear or equipment?
Yes.
It's the answer to that.
Yes, but I haven't got it yet. I won't get it till the end of November as things stand, but that might come forward. Who knows? But I've ordered the new MacBook Pro. So Apple just announced the new M1 Pro chip that they're putting into their MacBooks now. It was the M1 previously. Now they've got the M1 Pro and the M1 Pro Max. And so my current MacBook is it's only 2 years old. It's Intel. It's 8-core, 2.4 gigahertz, I believe, 2.3 maybe. i9, maxed out with 64 gigs of RAM, and it's got the Radeon Pro 20 Vega 20 or thereabouts. So I can never remember the names of those things. And it's been a cracking machine. Does it handle video work as well as I want it to? Nope. No, it doesn't. Does it handle all photo work as well? Yeah. Nails that. But video work, I still find it struggles. So what I've done, so I've ordered this new one. It's got with the M1 Pro Max chip in it. I've got a couple of details actually here of it. Face ID, come on, work. Got a mic in the way. And so it's the 16-inch that I went for. The M1 Max that's the GPU. It's a 10-core CPU, which compared to my i9 Intel, now bear in mind how Apple word things. All right, at times it can be slightly misleading. Sounds amazing on the surface, but can be misleading. So I'd like to see real world kind of usage first. But it should be, in typical usage, about 1.7 times better CPU performance than what I'm getting today with pretty much any general software that I use. GPU performance, so the graphics chip, I should be getting, and this compares to a different graphics card than what I've got. The graphics card I've got in here is slightly better than the one they're comparing it to on their site. Should be getting almost twice as good performance on it. The M1 Pro Max also has a dedicated media render engine within it as well. So that 2 times performance is based on DaVinci Resolve as well, rendering in DaVinci Resolve, which is what I use. So I'm expecting video performance to drastically improve when I get this, let alone the additional, they got a neural engine as well, the additional super fast kind of memory that's going to be in there, the extra, the better battery life, all of that kind of stuff within it. And they've got rid of that god-awful touch bar that's currently on mine as well. What a waste of space that thing is. Ugh, awful. So they've replaced that touch bar with, actual F keys again. It's got SD card, actual reader slot in it now again, an actual HDMI input again. It's got the MagSafe charger as well, back to that, which is great. Haven't been a huge fan of these USB-C or Thunderbolt charging ports on this one. Yeah, so I'm quietly hopeful. Possible downsides are going to be whether all the software and my plugins that I use for audio and video actually work with the M1 chip. Now, I think the M1 chip's now been out long enough that the majority of it is working absolutely fine. I get updates constantly coming through saying we're now M1 compatible for this software and so on and so on and so on. I am not putting my current MacBook up for sale until I've got the new one and I've tried everything out extensively, and I know it all works exactly how it should work before this one. I let this one go. The Rosetta software within it is supposed to be really good, but let's see. Plus, it comes with the new OS that's coming out, the new... I want to say Montgomery, but I don't think that's what it's called.
No idea.
Whatever it's called. The new OS that's coming out at the same time. So I have to say, quite excited about getting it.
Sounds
and
cool.
it brought the price down. It's brought the price down moving from Intel to their own chips. It's about 500 quid cheaper than maxing out this MacBook 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. 400 quid. 400.
That's interesting.
Which is quite a bit, really. It's like 10%.
Yeah, I mean, plus, if you're selling your old laptop, the difference then might actually be not that bad.
This maxed out was like $4,000, right? This was one that I'm looking at right now. 2 years ago. That's all. Perfect condition. Perfect. Guess how much Apple wanted to give me for that if I traded in on this new one? Just hazard a guess. 2 years old, perfect condition, maxed out.
200 quid.
Oh, all right. Let's be slightly more realistic.
Okay, well, I'd say, so it's $4,000. Let's say $2,000.
I think that would be very reasonable, right? 650 quid.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's disgraceful. Other trading places will do 800. There's one that will do $1,000. But no, because they're going to go sell that for 1,500, $2,000, and I'm not on board with that, so I'm going to sell it myself.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just going to be easier.
I wonder how much they would give me for my MacBook Pro from 2011.
You would have to pay them to take it off your hands.
Yeah, we're negative equity right there.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still going strong, right?
It's what I'm looking at right now. Talking to you, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can vaguely. I think the camera on it I can see you on right now is 4 or 5 pixels for your face, give or take.
Just about exactly.
Yeah.
So there's also currently no green line going through the screen because that was the point where I basically gave up on it. Was
is that fixed?
No, it's like they're basically they happen sometimes, and then occasionally they're not. So at the moment, there's no green line there. It's probably just a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
I tell you what, for me, upgrading from my MacBook Pro to the iMac, just upgrading to that screen, that 5K screen, it's made such a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I experience that every time I do shoot in my home studio here because I have a secondary monitor over in the shooting space, and that's just a reference monitor. So when I have a client there, or when I'm hand holding, usually what happens is, when I shoot handheld, I sort of move further into the space, and because I shoot tethered, I then can't really see my main iMac anymore, and so I have a secondary screen over there, so I can just get an idea as to what's happening on the screen.
Yeah.
But the screen that I'm using, which is incidentally is one of your old screens.
It's a screen my old work gave me a long time ago to work from home, which.
So it's basically like a standard. It's a standard computer screen, I guess.
Yeah. From like 10 years ago. Yeah.
From 10 years, yeah. And so as a reference screen, it works fine. But then when you, of course, really look at some of the detail back on the 5K screen, the difference is just, it's like day and night.
If I remember correct, I can't remember which way around it was. Either the blacks on that screen was so deep that you assumed you couldn't see anything there, but you go to see it on the iMac, and actually you can see everything still, and it's not dark enough. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember.
No, it's basically, you lose all the detail in the shadows.
Yeah, it was that way around.
On that, and actually, the dynamic range is totally compressed. Basically, you lose detail, a lot of detail in the shadows, and quite a lot of detail in the highlights as well. So, you really don't get the whole depth of the image when you look at that. Mm-hmm. When you look at that secondary screen, for sure. But again, is it worth upgrading to a 5K screen for that purpose? Not for me. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's literally just a screen I throw up. When I need it.
I mean, use it for compositional purposes more than anything, I guess. And,
that's all it is. That's absolutely all it is. Yeah. Just making sure the image. Yeah, I mean, you can basically make really good lighting decisions when you look at that. When you look at that screen, you can see whether your lighting ratios are right, and whether things are coming out the way you want them to be. It's a million times better than just looking at the screen on the back of your camera.
Oh yeah,
that's the thing. And so if it wasn't for that, then I would have to basically move back and forth between where I'm actually situated when I'm shooting and where my screen is. So that's just in my setup here. If you have a laptop on a table with wheels, you can wheel it with you. Perfect. In my case, it's not exactly possible for a variety of reasons. So, so that works. Works for me. There's also, of course, when I'm doing when I'm shooting the 3 heads in a row project, where I'm literally sat at a table opposite my subject, and having that screen right next to you, where I'm shooting straight into my computer, so I don't have to transfer any files afterwards. But it still gives me a reference as to what's happening. A pretty good reference, actually, as to what's happening. And I can see whether the image is sharp. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You want to see whether it's sharp. And you want to see whether the lighting ratios are on. And everything else is gravy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, yeah, like you say, do you need that 4 or 5K screen? No. But definitely makes a difference when you.
From an editing perspective, once you start editing on something, something like a 5K screen, you really don't want to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to do any detailed editing work on my MacBook Pro anymore. Yeah. And I used that for literally, 8 years or something.
Yeah.
To do pretty much all of my editing on.
As good as this MacBook screen is, and it is good, and it's color calibrated and all of that kind of jazz. Anything that actually needs a bit of precision, anything at all, video or photo, I still connect to my 4K external screen.
And it's also just the size of it. That's the other thing. I found that when I switched to the 5K iMac, my eyes stopped straining as much.
Yeah.
I really had an issue with my eyes getting really quite strained. That's pretty much gone. And there's two reasons for that, I think. One is because the screen is bigger. You don't have to strain to see the detail as much. There's a lot more clarity in it. It's much easier to see everything. But it's also just a posture thing. For me personally, when I sit in front of a laptop, I sort of hunch over. And, you know what it's like when you spend 2, 3, 4, 5 hours editing, that very quickly develops into some really annoying niggles in your shoulders and your neck. In my case, it's the neck, and also the eyes. So since I've switched to the iMac and I do everything on a desktop based computer, that's really made a big difference. My posture is a lot better. I don't get any of these strains. It's made a big difference. Of course, the disadvantage is it's not as portable. I can't exactly take it with me everywhere. And so, when we are on location, I have to come up with a different solution, because obviously then I'm shooting to a laptop or a MacBook Pro and I'm shooting to a hard drive. It is what it is.
Yeah, but you've still got that 2011, 2012 MacBook that you can use for stuff. If we're doing stuff together, I'll always have that MacBook Pro anyway knocking about. So there's always ways around it, right?
Exactly. My MacBook Pro now is simply a Zoom machine.
Yeah.
So I do most often. And a sort of preview monitor when we're out on location. That's all it does. Yeah. I don't really do anything literally. Oh yeah, and I write some blogs on it. So it's a typewriter.
Until these latest MacBooks got announced, I was considering getting an iMac in addition to this MacBook that I've got now. But I'm confident that this new MacBook Pro will still do me, because I'd rather still have one machine that's I can move around if I can, because I like working in different places. But that being said, what I do like about going to my room with my screen in is that you automate. It's a bit like if you work in corporate and you go into the office, you're conditioned to work in that environment. If you go down and sit at a screen that's at a desk, you're conditioned to actually do work and not get as distracted by other things that are going on. Whereas if you're working on a laptop, like I often will work on my laptop in the living room in here, and I will get distracted, particularly if it's work that doesn't require any degree of precision on color or anything like that. But I will get distracted. I absolutely do, and I will get less done. But I do find it comfortable and more relaxing to be able to work wherever I want to. Yeah. But anyway, there you go. It's pros and cons to all of them.
Yeah,
and it's just whatever's right for you, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, for probably 12 years or something, I shot everything on a laptop, just mainly because it was portable. I could take it around, I could edit wherever I was, and so on and so forth. And that's a very, very useful ability to have, no doubt.
Yeah.
And in a pinch, I would still edit stuff on my MacBook Pro, although it's old. But it really depends on what your situation is. I like my little workstation right behind me because it feels like a comfortable place for me to be, and it's it's a good place for me to work, and that's what I need. Since the beginning of the pandemic and everything, I haven't really moved around that much anyway.
Yeah.
We've done location shoots and whatever, but nothing like.
Yeah.
It's a different scenario, I think. When you're shooting conferences, for example, or you're doing those kind of away events, as it were, and you have to deliver stuff right there. I can, it would be an advantage to have maybe a bigger screen or something in the hotel room or something, but it's nothing that can't be.
Absolutely.
Can't be
Absolutely.
So.
I'm just looking over to my left here, and I've just realized I've still got my 2012 iMac over there and my 2012 MacBook Pro down there too, which was 6 months newer than your MacBook that you've got there.
That's right.
Yeah. It was the first one to get rid of the CD drive. That's how old we're talking.
Right. Okay. Oh, wow.
Because yours still has a disk drive, right? That one.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I don't have any CDs anymore, but hey.
No, exactly. So
it's good to know. It's good to know that I still got it.
Yeah.
And still,
I'm frustrated because I put a terabyte SSD in that iMac, and then not a month later bought this MacBook.
Right.
So I was using that until 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can still use it.
Wrong with it. It's fast.
Does it have does your iMac has a 4K screen?
No.
What kind of screen is it?
I don't know. Whatever they produced prior to that, it wasn't 4K. No, but it is fast. For what it was, I think it was only an i5 Intel, but it was like 3.6 gigahertz. I think it's a quad core.
Right.
So it's probably still quick. I might boot that up. But it's sat there for 2 years doing nothing, as is that other MacBook. I may as well just throw them away.
Well, you could use them like as a TV in the bedroom or something. Who knows?
I don't know what to do with them. I need to come up with a way to connect them all so I can use the power of all of them to do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Well, talking about connecting the power of everything. So Photoshop is now coming to the web.
The World Wide Web, the interwebs.
The interwebs, yeah. So Photoshop is coming to the web, but not in the way that you might think it does. So Adobe is coming out with a whole range of different upgrades to their software packages, and one particular feature of both Photoshop and Illustrator is that they're now going to introduce cloud-based collaboration functionality.
Mm-hmm.
But again, not in the way that you think it would be possible. So ideally, of course, what you think is like, well, if you work on on a document, on an image or whatever in the cloud, and somebody else could work on it at the same time. This is somewhat different. This is basically where you create a URL for this particular project that you're working on, and then somebody else can have access to that project. They can view it and they can annotate and comment on it.
Okay.
So that's the idea behind that. And so that basically happens entirely in the browser. So the other person doesn't even need to own Photoshop or anything like that. All they need to have is an internet connection and a browser. So currently, that will work with both Chrome and Microsoft Edge, and I'm pretty sure Safari is not going to be far behind that. But so that's the idea behind it. And at first when I read this, I kind of thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. Why are they doing this? Well, clearly, when I think about what could happen at a photo shoot where you're working with an art director, for example, when you're shooting something, but maybe when you're editing, that might actually just simplify the workflow there, because somebody else could look at your edits and then annotate it and basically say, let's say you were creating, I don't know, a movie poster or something. You could have the art director go, oh, actually, no, change this. I don't like the background. The skin retouching here doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And you would instantaneously get the notes and you could, communicate much more easily rather than sending files and waiting for feedback and all that kind of stuff,
Okay.
So this could be quite a useful useful feature.
So it's not a collaborative style update. This is more than anything a client-facing style update. Because there are plugins which work. I think I used one in Premiere when I was using Premiere called Whipster, which is it's a third-party plugin, but it connects directly within Premiere and will upload your export to X location with a URL, and your client can then go in, review it, and annotate, and those annotations are pulled directly into Premiere at the specific spot in the timeline where that annotation was made. So 1 minute, whatever it might be. So I'm guessing it's a similar style thing, but for Photoshop.
Yes, it seems very similar. Of course, the idea here is that it's already built into Photoshop and Illustrator. And so there's no need for any third-party apps. It's interesting that it's Photoshop and Illustrator, because that really hints at the kind of work or the kind of projects that they're aiming at with that. And that's usually where you have an art director in the background, signing off decisions or guiding your workflow or your edits into certain directions.
It's definitely for the professionals out there rather than
absolutely.
Anyone else, right? But it sounds like it's something that they will expand upon as time goes on.
Yeah, you can see that totally in a professional sense, but you could also make use of that in a educational sense, for example, where you as a tutor, for example, look at ongoing work of a student. Absolutely. And you annotate, in that respect. So I think it's very clearly aimed at those two major segments. It's the professional market and it's the educational element as well, potentially.
We often share images amongst each other, and
all the time.
What do you think with the update? This could be useful for us too, just for those second pair of eyes, rather than exporting it and sending it across and then having to write it in a text message or on the phone or over email. Absolutely. And anything like that. You can just put it directly on there and pull it in. That's
absolutely, because all it does is it basically creates a URL. So there's you essentially just click on open in Photoshop on the web beta. There's like a function, a drop-down thing. It creates a URL. Done. So it sounds like it's pretty simple.
Yeah, totally.
I'm looking forward to
try it
checking
out, and we'll let people know what we think.
Yeah, it'd be useful to have a similar function in Lightroom as well. I think purely from a photography point of view. But so far it sounds like that's going to be part of Photoshop and Illustrator. At this point.
That's cool.
But there's a whole lot of major upgrades in the works at the moment at Adobe. I get notifications almost every week to say that something is updating. So
that's cool. Looking forward to trying it out.
Yeah.
See if it can be useful for us.
Absolutely. Now, I think we have come to the end of episode 80 of the Camera Shake podcast. We will be introducing a few new elements in over the next few episodes, so that could be interesting as well. So, stick around if you want to hear about that. But for now, that was episode 80. Remember, if you are listening to the audio version, as always, you can head over to youtube.com/camera shake if you want to see our lovely face in full Technicolor. Whilst you're there, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell thingy, do everything that YouTubers tell you to do usually. And of course, remember, write us a little review. And if you are somewhere in Europe, hit us up, send us a message. It'd be great to hear from you. That being said, that was Camera Shake Podcast episode 80. See you again next week.